Welcome to Disciples. We're on a journey to become all that Christ wants. You know, this is a good day, and it's a good day because, well, I got a good cup of coffee in front of me. I just brewed it. It's really, really yummy. You know, I like coffee, but before we get into the rest of this video, I want to talk about coffee because I really like it. So this is coffee that I made yesterday. It was so good. We used an Ethiopian bean and it was delicious. Oh, here's another picture. I made this for my wife and I actually got the latte art to look like a heart. Isn't that cool? So that's kind of fun. I love making coffee. I like making really good coffee. Here's another day that a few months ago that I made some coffee. And you can see right there the brown stuff on that coffee. That's from a French press, and that's the oils that are the good oils that are from the beans that are in that drink. And here's another thing. Oh, here's my French press, and you can see some of the tools that I have to make really, really good coffee. So, I made a cold brew, and look at this. This is, oh my, doesn't that look just so good? The milk going all the way through that. I mean, coffee is just great. So there is a reason why I'm talking about coffee, but you know what? Before we go there, we all know what bad coffee tastes like, right? When you go to a restaurant and it's been sitting on the bun brewer, it's that little pot that a waitress, I digress. In old days, we used to go to restaurants and eat. Someday we'll get to do that again. But when you pour that in, generally it's bad coffee because it's been sitting on the bun burner for about 2 hours. It tastes awful. It's bitter. Coffee can also taste sour. And so we all know sort of what bad coffee is, either way too strong, way too weak, bitter, sour. But with a little technique and some tools, you can really make great tasting coffee, just like the coffee that I made right here today. I gotta get another drink. So there are ways to make good coffee, and it's important to know how to do those. But here's where this connects with our story. We're talking about disciples. You see, there really are ways to make good disciples, to make an outcome that looks exactly like what a disciple should look like. If you remember when we first started out, we talked about what is a disciple. We said a disciple, when Christ uses the word, he really meant a learner or an apprentice. If you remember the Greek word, we said it was maphete. And we all know the challenges of just being a learner, learning from tough things, keeping open and staying a learner is such a challenge in life. We like to get it all together and be done. But unfortunately, part of being a disciple is this ongoing process of what it means to know and become more and more like Christ. Christ kind of stated in a number of different places, particularly in the Gospel of Matthew. He has a number of passages that speak boldly to us. On a grand scale, Matthew 22, which is the passage that has the Great Command, very much speaks about what a disciple should look like. In a sense, what a disciple should taste like. It should taste like good coffee. And a disciple should taste good and look good. And Jesus says there, the greatest command is, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your mind, with all your soul. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. You see, at a core, what, in a sense, makes a disciple taste good is that they love God passionately. And they love others distinctively. But Christ said, there are some things that we need to know about how we make a disciple, or the factors or the conditions that produce a disciple. He says this in Matthew 7, in verses 16 and 17. You will recognize them by their fruits. Are grapes gathered from thorn bushes, or figs from thistles. So every healthy tree bears good fruit, but the diseased tree bears bad fruit. You see, there are conditions that help us become good fruit. There are things, ways that we need to process ourselves, if you will, just like coffee, so that we end up with good fruit and not bad fruit. You know, in Galatians, there's this really pretty scary contrast. It's pretty amazing. And what does this fruit look like? What does it look like when someone really is not following Christ? When they are not being, where they're not learning, where they're not growing, where they're not putting themselves in the conditions. And it's in Galatians 5, and it says, now the works of the flesh are evident: sexual immorality, impurity, sensuality, idolatry, enmity, strife, jealousy, fits of anger, dissensions, divisions, envy, drunkenness, orgies, and the things like that. I mean, that's quite a list. That's like, ugh, that's bad fruit. That is not what we're to look like. But look at the contrast right after this. He says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. You see, these are the things that produce good fruit. That's what it looks like. And what we want to do as we begin to think through what's a disciple, well, what does one look like? Well, a disciple loves God and loves others, but he also produces good fruit like in that passage of Galatians. But here's the question today is what are the conditions? What are the things that we need to do on our part and on God's part so that we produce good fruit? We have some questions developed for you, and in your time to study, you'll unpack a tool that I use that really helps me to wrap my hands around what are the things that I need to participate and be a part of and do so that the conditions are good in my life and in others' lives so that we produce that good kind of fruit. And we end up looking like Matthew 22, that we love God with all our heart and we love others as we love ourselves.